The Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake.
Welcome to the Jesse Blake Sports Report. Whether this is your first time here, your last time here, or somewhere in between, I appreciate that you're here right now so that we can do my official Stanley Cup Playoff bracket. So on the Steve Dangle podcast, if you don't listen to Steve Dangle podcast, go listen to the Steve Dangle podcast. Find it on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. On the Steve Dangle podcast, we went through some of our picks throughout the week. We went through like all the first round series. We did our quick brackets on the show on Friday. But this is going to be my official bracket that I'm going to submit to our league and I'm going to follow. And this is my bracket. So here we go. Let's do my picks. In the first round in the Western Conference, we start with Dallas and Vegas, which is, I think, the hardest series to pick in the first round. And I'm giving the slight edge to Vegas. Let me click them right there. I'm giving the slight edge to Vegas because I trust the Vegas Golden Knights based on what I've seen last year. Betting on Vegas every round worked out. They won the Stanley Cup last season. And going into this season, they haven't been playing too well heading into the later half of last season. They were off to this season. They were off to a great start. They were really hot. And then towards the end, they kind of played some mediocre hockey. But I think that's because this team is built for the playoffs. And I trust them. I trust in this tight matchup where I think these two teams are very even. I'm giving the slight edge to Vegas because I trust them and the size of this team to perform in the playoffs. And having Noah Hannafin there, if Petro is healthy, that's going to be such a key to this series. If he is in that lineup, I think they take down the Dallas Stars. Jake Ottinger hasn't been the greatest playoff performer in his career. I think they might struggle a little to score against this team that's so defensively sound. And Vegas has never had trouble putting up their own points. I'm giving the slight edge to Vegas in that first round series. Next up, Winnipeg, Colorado. Whenever I need information about Colorado, I default to producer Drew Livingstone, who works for SDPN. I default to him on the Colorado takes. And one thing he always says consistently is they're a one-line team. They are Nathan McKinnon and a bunch of guys. So coming into this series, you'll see this theme throughout my bracket. Winnipeg's one of the hottest teams coming into the playoffs right now. And I trust Winnipeg with their excellent goaltending. And on the other side, Colorado was really struggling in net. And I love what they do up front. I think you have a bunch of guys who have been there for years. Like Winnipeg isn't like a young team that's doing this out of nowhere, like some other teams in the bracket. Winnipeg, they have a bunch of vets. They have a bunch of guys who've been in this league, who've been in playoff series, who have failed a lot. And now Winnipeg looks good and everything's kind of calm in Winnipeg. I love this team, this playoffs. And I'm going to pick Winnipeg over Colorado. So that sets up the second round matchup of Vegas and Winnipeg. Going out over to the bottom half of the Western Conference. All season long, I've been riding the Nashville Predators, and I can't get off that bandwagon now. I believed in them in the preseason to make the playoffs. They weren't that great to begin the year. Then they went on this crazy run from February through to the end of the playoffs. They've been one of the best teams in the National Hockey League, and as you can see, I've been riding with teams that have had great winter/spring portions of the NHL season. I'm going to keep riding with Nashville. But I can totally see a scenario where Vancouver, they just play because they've been consistently at the top of the standings all season long, and they're not as great as they were at the beginning of the season because they don't have their starting goaltender for the last 2 months, month and a half of the regular season. Demko's been out, but he's back. He's going to be in the series. If their scoring doesn't show up, Nashville's going to take this easily. But their scoring shows up, this is going to be a really tough series for Nashville. I think it's going to be super close. I could easily see this going either way, but I'm going to side with Nashville because I've been on that bandwagon all season long. Edmonton, LA. This is, I think, one of the easier ones in the West because we've seen this. This is the third time. Cam Talbot's been playing nice. I thought that's where LA would really struggle in goal, but LA had a really tough December through January, February-ish. And then they got back on their horse. LA, they started the season off. They almost set the record for most consecutive road wins in an NHL season. The Kings did. And then they just went away. And that little portion there where they went away, I lost trust in the Kings, unfortunately. And with the Edmonton Oilers, I really like what the Oilers bring to the table offensively. I don't think they're going to be stopped. I don't think it's an easy task for any team to stop the Edmonton Oilers offensively. And if they can just not make the defensive mistakes that they seem to consistently make in the big spots in the playoffs, this team's going to be great. Stuart Skinner's like fantastic. Like, who knew that Jack Campbell going down and Skinner not playing well at the beginning of the season, and then Skinner just coming alive and been fantastic for months now. Like, I got full confidence in Skinner. I think McDavid shows up. I think Draisaitl shows up. And the defense is just the key for me. And you know what? Evan Bouchard should be in the Norris conversation. Darnell Nurse, get your head in the game. Don't make those giant defensive mistakes. Play solid defense. Go retrieve pucks in the corners. Just play solid defensive hockey. And this Oilers team is going to go on a deep run. Oilers picking them in the first round to win against the Kings. I think in 5 or 6 games. 6 games. 6 games. Let's go. 6 games. 7 games. Nashville over Vancouver Canucks and Colorado, Winnipeg. How many games should I do? Colorado, Winnipeg. Let's go 7 as well. 6 for the Vegas Golden Knights. So we got 6 Knights over Stars, Winnipeg over Avs in 7, Nashville over Vancouver in 7, Oilers over LA in, should I go to 5? That's too risky. In 6. All right. Next up, the Eastern Conference, Tampa, Florida. Second hardest matchup. If I said Dallas, Vegas was the hardest, I think this is the second hardest matchup to pick. I'm going to, just like with Vegas, where I side with the experience, I want to side with the Tampa Bay Lightning and Nikita Kucherov and Vasilevsky and Steven Stamkos and Braden Point and Victor Hedman and all of them showing up and saying, you know what? We got dad strength. We got experience, and we're going to bully the Florida Panthers, and we're going to win in this first round matchup. So I'm going to take Tampa Bay Lightning over the Florida Panthers in the first round there. Boston, Toronto. Whoo! Boston, Toronto. So the way I land on this series is if this team, with all of these $10+ million players, the Toronto Maple Leafs, if you can't beat this Boston Bruins squad, who is performing way above what they should be on paper, if you don't beat them this time, like, what the hell is the point of this team? Brad Treliving brought in the snot. Like, that's what he was tasked with doing this offseason. Tyler Bertuzzi, you need to show up. Max Domi, you need to show up. That line that has been put together for Austin Matthews has been fantastic. And those guys need to show up and play postseason hockey. And if they don't do it this year, what the hell is the point of all of this stuff? What's the point of having Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and William Nylander and John Tavares if they can't beat a team like the Bruins? So they got to do it this season. I think they get it done. They're going to the second round. Once again, Toronto beats Boston in a tight series. New York, Washington. I don't need to spend a lot of time here. I'm rooting for the Rangers. Rangers are going to take care of business. -37. If the -37 goal differential that the Caps finished with, if that doesn't scream, you need to win this series, then Rangers, same thing here. What is the point of your entire roster if you can't take care of business against this Caps team who probably shouldn't be in the playoffs? You need to get it done. I get Charlie Lindgren's been like a star for them. He's kept them in this playoff race and everything, but you're better. You're better in goal. I like Shesterkin better. You're better up front. You got better forwards. You got better defense. Like, win the series, New York. All right, New York's going to do that. This one is very contentious. It's very tough. Carolina, New York. New York really shouldn't have any shot winning the series. I was on moneypuck.com the other day, like yesterday, and I think they have Carolina at like an 80% shot at winning this series. And most of the series, because the playoffs, most teams are pretty even. They're at like 54-45. Like, that's kind of the area you usually see these playoff series. Like, the favorite is usually like 55, and because it's hockey and everything's so random. But in this series, the Hurricanes and the Islanders, it shouldn't be close at all. And I want to, the way I picked it on the Steve Dangle podcast was I picked the Islanders because I want to make a bet on Semyon Varlamov and Patrick Waugh. I want to make a bet on the goaltending. And the way the Islanders have played going into the postseason, I believe they're 7-2-1 their last 10. I don't have it right in front of me because I have the bracket right in front of me. But they're 7-2-1 going to the playoffs. And one thing I've done here throughout my bracket is betting on the teams that are hot going into the playoffs. And Carolina hasn't been hot all season. So my bet on the Islanders being hot, and Carolina also has been just a good team. Like, I'm taking away from the Hurricanes by saying the Islanders have been hot because the Carolina Hurricanes have just been good all season long. And one thing I heard, I think it was 32 Thoughts who was talking about how Carolina plays a man defense, and man defense always like sparks my ears for the playoffs because man defenses haven't been very successful in the playoffs lately. Most teams that have been successful in the playoffs have played a hybrid defense where you're playing a hybrid zone man coverage, and the Hurricanes play this strictly man defense, and not the biggest fan of that. It's a bet on Patrick Waugh and Varlamov, as I said. It's a bet on the Islanders are just have a bunch of momentum heading to the playoffs. They're a different team than what we've seen over the course of the season. We've seen a long, like if you pull the averages of each team, it doesn't look good. But if you isolate for the last month of the season, it looks pretty good. And the Islanders look like they're a lot more competitive than the Hurricanes. One thing the Hurricanes do have their favor is special teams. Like it's not close. I believe they're number 1 in the PP, number 2 in the PK. Special teams, like, hit it out of the ballpark. Looking at the numbers, there shouldn't be a shot here at all for the Islanders. Like, I'm strictly admitting that. I want to take the Islanders strictly as a giant upset. I spent way too much time here. I'm picking the Islanders. Let's do it. All right. Islanders it'll be tight, 7. New York in 4. I think we got a sweep. Toronto in 7. Exercise Demons. Tampa in 5. Florida, I'm giving you no credit. Prove me wrong. Next up, let's go to the second round. Let's go back to the West. Vegas, Winnipeg. Let's go. Winnipeg or Vegas? This one's really tough. I'm gonna skip this one. I'm gonna go back to the bottom of the bracket because I already know I want Edmonton over Nashville. I'm trusting Edmonton doesn't play poor defense, has an amazing offense. Let's go Edmonton. Vegas, Winnipeg. Oh my gosh, I haven't really. It's so tight. Let's go. Let's go Winnipeg, Vegas. Let's go Vegas. Vegas back in the Western Conference Final. Vegas, Edmonton, Western Conference Final. No, let's go Winnipeg. It's just, I think these two teams are even. I could flip a coin either way. I'll go Winnipeg. Winnipeg, Edmonton, Western Conference Final. Let's go back to the East. Toronto takes down Tampa 2 years in a row. 2 years in a row, Toronto takes down Tampa. I think they match up well with the Lightning. I think they take them down 2 years in a row. Rangers take down the Islanders. Islanders magic wears out. They can't beat the Rangers. Rangers take down the Leafs in the Eastern Conference Final. Rangers, I think they're a perfect team right now. Edmonton takes down Winnipeg in the Western Conference Final. So that leaves us with our Stanley Cup Final of Edmonton and New York. I'm going to take the Rangers. Rangers defeat McDavid in the Stanley Cup Final. Submit my bracket. I have read rules and agreed to the official rules. Total goals scored 35. Submit the bracket. As you can see there, I kind of really struggle with the second round because the way I evaluate who's going to win the second round is how I see them play in the playoffs. It's a different beast in the NHL as opposed to all these other sports. You can't just like rely on these teams' regular season and how they've done the regular season because we've seen a million times throughout hockey. These teams are different come the playoffs. So I'm not really sure about my second round picks because I'm not really sure how these teams are going to face in the playoffs. But I love my Stanley Cup Final pick. I love the Rangers against the Oilers. I think that is how it plays out. And how we get there, whether it's the Leafs playing the Rangers in the Western Conference Final or the Vegas Golden Knights playing the Edmonton Oilers, whether it's Winnipeg or Vegas, Toronto or Tampa, I think we settle there with the Oilers and the Rangers coming out of the East and the West. That's what I'm like confident about. So we'll see how it goes. Those are my picks. Let me know what you think. Let me know your Stanley Cup picks. Write it in the YouTube chat if you're on watching on YouTube. Tweet me. Let me know. You send me your brackets. I love to see your brackets. I love to see what people are thinking. How many upsets you got. Let me know. That's it for me right now. Thank you for being here. It could have been anywhere in the world because be watching this or listening, and I appreciate you for that. If you want to see me stream, I'm streaming before most Leafs games. I'm going to miss Game 3 because I'm going to be at Game 3. But about an hour before every Leafs game, I'll be streaming on the SDPN YouTube channel and our Twitch channel. I'll be simulcast on both. I'm going to be playing NHL 24. We're doing Toronto Maple Leafs GM mode, so look out for those live streams over on the SDPN YouTube channel. Appreciate you being here. Good night from Toronto.
And that is how it's done.
The Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake.
Jesse Blake, the guy that likes to hear his name twice in one sentence. Sure, I know him.
No, he doesn't have an ego at all.